A friendship on YouTube ends. Dun dun dun. Hello YouTube, Film Buff 06 here with my long-awaited review of the second installment of Who Addicts Reviews Whovians fan film trilogy, Whovians Reborn, which was co-written and co-directed by co-stars James Wilson and Matthew Rowney, and was uploaded onto the Who Addicts Reviews YouTube channel on Friday, the 5th of September 2014. Speaking of which, Whovians Reborn was originally supposed to be released on the 30th of September, but the release date was moved forward to early in the month due to Tom Dix from Epic Who being forced to postpone his own fan film, The Next-ish Doctor, due to extensive back surgery. The plot of Whovians Reborn, which was preceded by a 3-minute prequel titled It's a Timey-Wimey Thing, which of course was named after a quote said by the 11th Doctor in The Day of the Doctor. The plot of Whovians Reborn takes place straight after the events at the end of the first film, Whovians No More, where James Wilson and Matthew Rowney successfully travelled back to their own timeline after being trapped in the black and white Doctor Who-less future by watching The Day of the Doctor. However, they then realised that they accidentally travelled back a year too far to the 24th of May 2013, the day that they made their first ever video on the channel. So as a result of this, James and Matthew decide to go on the run from their past selves by camping outside in the woods of Middlesbrough without any pocket money whatsoever to feed themselves because their YouTube channel isn't very popular yet. When the fateful date of the 4th of August 2013, the day that they filmed their controversial live reaction to Peter Capaldi being cast as the 12th Doctor, looms over the horizon, James sees an opportunity to change the future of their channel by planting a special envelope at the doorstep of their past selves that announces in advance who is being cast as the next Doctor after Matt Smith, to prevent their controversial reaction video from ever being made. But Matthew knows that if James succeeds in doing this, not only will he risk undoing the future of their channel, he will also risk their friendship being over for good. Now I've been looking forward to this film ever since I reviewed the very first film, Whovians No More, on my channel. By the way, if you want to check that out, I'll leave the link in the description below. So My thoughts on Whovians Reborn? Well, I have to say congratulations to both James Wilson and Matthew Rowney for doing such a fantastic and awesome job making this film, because wow, I mean, I'm almost speechless. This film is much better than the first one. I mean, I like the fact that the story feels more personal this time, and actually sort of like a Doctor Who episode in and of itself, you know, balancing elements of humour with elements of darkness and gloom, and also that we gradually get to see James and Matthew's friendship being, you know, tested and pushed to the limits, almost like the classic Doctor companion dynamic, really. I also like the idea this time around of the temptation that surely most of us have had at some point in our lives, where we all wish we could go back in time to our past, to a certain event in our past, and change one or all aspects of our future, whilst at the same time, you know, having to question the consequences of our actions if we do this. You know, which of course is a subject that has been tackled on before in past Doctor Who episodes, such as 2005's Father's Day, 2008's Turn Left, and especially The Waters of Mars from 2009. I also like the fact that this film has almost a documentary style to it, as throughout the film we get to see how James and Matthew made their first few videos on the channel, and you really get to see, you know, how much effort they consistently put into all of their videos. How much professional effort they put in. Like Whovians No More, the script is fantastically well written, and just living proof that these two guys have you know, absolute potential to write future episodes of Doctor Who. Moffat, BBC, if you lot are watching this video, which I presume you are, you desperately need to hire James Wilson and Matthew Rowney to write an episode or two of the show, if you really want to please the fans, to please the fandom. The direction is superb. The acting from both James and Matthew is brilliant, and has actually significantly improved from the first film. Plus the little boy whose voice you can hear within the 16-minute mark of the film is Ashton Kramer, who, believe it or not, is James's little cousin. Yes, I know. Jacob Martin's editing of this thing is again fantastic. It's kind of refreshing this time that they have used a completely original score for this film, as opposed to, you know, reusing some of Murray Gold's music, which, to be fair, they sort of did to great effect in Whovians No More, because it makes the film, you know, stand out more. And the score that they did use here is nothing short of brilliant. It's just nothing short of brilliant. The cinematography just brilliantly adds to the fun and dark atmosphere of the film. Whovians Reborn is approximately 40 minutes long, which is 7 minutes longer than Whovians No More, and never once throughout these 40 minutes did I look at my watch and think, is anything ever going to happen in this film? The pacing was incredible, and as a result, I found myself hugely entertained throughout those 40 minutes well spent. The Doctor Who references in this film were just fantastic. I mean, there are references to John Pertwee's Venetian Aikido. Hi! Peter Capaldi's, you know, angry attack eyebrow stare. Like that. The Colin Baker strangle from the Twin Dilemma. The 10th Doctor's catchphrases of Molto bene and Allons-y, and especially Allons-y. The line at the end of Fear Her, when the Doctor says to Rose, a storm's approaching. John Sims' master laugh. Matt Smith's iconic drunken giraffe dance. The confrontation towards the end between the past and present selves of James and Matthew, where they show off their matching sonics to each other, mirroring the confrontation between the 10th and 11th Doctors in Day of the Doctor, of course, and of course the iconic Do I Have the Right scene from Genesis of the Daleks, when the Doctor is holding the two wires and is holding the two wires and is trying to decide whether or not to kill the Daleks. I found myself laughing at the little reference to Owen Salmons and his obviously stalker-like obsession with Jenna Coleman. No offence, Owen, if you're watching this. Anyway, I thought that bit was just hilarious, as well as the moment where Matthew, you know, flirts with his past self, and James is like, Matthew flirting with himself, is this how it all ends? And then proceeds really to take the piss out of his own past self. The only reference I didn't really like, though, was when it cuts back briefly to the Reapers trilogy, which is a Team Drew effort. This could be considered a bit of a nitpick in what is otherwise just a brilliant and awesome film, you know, due to personal taste. But personally, I didn't really get why that reference had to be included in the film. I mean, if it was implied, I would have been fine with that. But otherwise, it just felt a little bit, you know, pointless and out of place for me. But luckily it doesn't take away from my enjoyment of the film. The film ends on a rather dark and somewhat bleak note, you know, akin to the endings of The Dark Knight, Godfather Part 2 and Empire Strikes Back, as, spoiler alert, James ends up crossing the line and decides not to rip up the envelope, thus ending his friendship with Matthew for good. During their confrontation with their past selves, the past version of James proceeds to rip up the envelope, thus creating another time storm that drops James and Matthew at two different points in time, separating the two seemingly forever. James ends up back in the present without Matthew and sets out to find him. As for Matthew, he ends up in 1963, the year which is of course the year where it all began for Doctor Who, and the film ends on a brilliant cliffhanger when Matthew encounters a parallel version of James called the Dictator, who questions, what the hell is Doctor Who? And from there, to be continued. Overall, Whovians Reborn is a fantastic fan film sequel to a fantastic first fan film. It is the Dark Knight or Empire Strikes Back of this fan film trilogy so far. It is awesome-tacular. It deserves my prestigious and highest possible rating of 10 out of 10, and I cannot wait for this trilogy to conclude fantastically next year with Whovians Unite. Now, feel free to leave a comment in the section below and let me know your thoughts on Whovians Reborn. Plus, feel free to subscribe to my own channel, FilmBuff06. And until my next video, which is going to be a review of the 2006 TV movie adaptation of Dracula with Mark Warren and David Suchet. Do take care, everyone. And Geronimo!